Yeah, I want to pick up on that theme because, based on what you've said, I can go and, I don't know, I have three textbooks here, and I'm pretty sure I can grab any of those three textbooks and pull out, there's some things that you challenged, as to, I mean, as far as theory wise, it could be anywhere from trading off inflation and employment, or equilibrium models, and there being a normal state of growth that's always inherent in an economy. These are things that are still taught, like that's the basic 101, that every student learns growing up. And, this is something that you've already challenged. And I'm just wondering, if this really is like an evidence based or empirical based, field. Like, how does some of these things remain so pervasive
Well,
as far as like what's
it's
out
an
there? And I
excellent
know you
question.
just shed some light on that, but kind of bring that home to what does that mean to the people who are outside the field?
Well, let's just take one uh, little example. The economics profession since the Second World War has paid very little attention to the question of resources, the cost of resources, the cost of energy, for example, the role that materials play in economic life. They focused on machinery, capital, and human input labor as the major sources of the productive process. Well, this is really quite problematic when you come into a world in which resources, and particularly energy resources, are becoming much more expensive, and it is necessary to move to more costly sources and means of production of energy. And it's also very problematic in a world in which you really have to take account of the wastage and of the emissions of the carbon dioxide in particular that's going into the atmosphere. It's causing climate change. These are not equilibrium processes. They are processes that deal with the finite and, to some degree, fragile systems in which we live. The economics profession, which is built around the notion that the market generates a stable equilibrium, essentially world without end, is not well prepared. It's not conceptually suited to dealing with problems of this kind. So what you say, what would be necessary? Well, if you wanted to start from the ground up, you would go to the natural sciences, and you would take the basic physics and mechanics of the situation, and you would build your economics on that. And that seems to me to be a sensible and plausible way to proceed. It's one of the things I talk about in general terms in my book. But if you take that conversation into an economics department, generally speaking, most of the people there, it's sufficiently unfamiliar to them that they simply think that you're not in the discipline. You're not talking economics as they understand it. So there is a great disconnect there, and it's a big problem.
And this is beyond fascinating to me because I feel like it was coming into this before you just went and basically shed some light on that. I assumed, just like I said when I first said in the intro, I assumed that the body of work of economics was broader than what the public is actually exposed to, and it seems like that this dominant faction that we see in front of us could just be a very loud faction, but for the most part, there's a body of pragmatic work that exists outside of that. It's just not given a microphone, so we don't know about it. It's not mentioned in policy discussions because a lot of the things that are out there in front, maybe perhaps that's what's has the most visibility, but it's not necessarily indicative of the field as a whole. You're saying quite the contrary, that it might be the main body of at least academic work, but there is actually still pragmatic work out there. It's just a lot smaller than what I had first. I assumed it was like 80-20.
Yeah,
We were only seeing
I don't want
20%.
to. I don't want to disparage everybody who's in the field, and there's some things which people find genuinely interesting. There's this whole body that's called behavioral economics that fascinates a substantial group in the profession. But as I say, on some of the questions that I would consider to be the most important, the stability of financial systems, the interaction of economics with the natural environment, the institutional failures and the need for codes of behavior that are effectively enforced by society so as to prevent financial meltdowns that are based upon massive waves of financial fraud. These are areas which attract me precisely because, by and large, the economics profession doesn't choose to engage with them at all.